Anybody ever believe for something and then ran into a problem or opposition, start crying, start complaining, start thinking that what you were believing for wasn't going to happen? If that's the case, you was operating in the wrong type of hope. Because whenever you operate in the God kind of hope, even when you run up against opposition, you should know opposition going to have to move. Opposition going to have to give way to what I'm believing. Why? Because hope, when it is the God kind of hope, is always going to cause a person to be blessed because it's going to save. Okay. Notice what the scripture said. For we were saved in this hope. But hope that is seen is not hope. For why does one still hope for what he sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, we eagerly wait for it with perseverance. So notice, Paul says again, for we are saved in this hope. The hope that he was trying to get the Roman church to understand as well as to walk in was the kind of hope that could cause a saving to take place in their lives. And so the subject tonight is the God kind of hope. The God kind of hope. That's what I want to speak to you about tonight, the God kind of hope. And again, don't miss it that the God kind of hope that I want to explain to us tonight is, again, biblical hope. And notice that according to Paul, he really wanted the church at Rome to understand that if they would operate in biblical hope, something good would always happen for them. And I think tonight that there are a number of us here tonight that we recognize or we know that if a person indeed operates in the God kind of hope, something good or something wonderful will take place for that person. But you have to be operating in the biblical hope. And there's a reason this needs to be taught tonight, because there is another type of hope that a person can operate in that he or she thinks they're operating in the God kind of hope, but they actually have hope, but it's the wrong hope. Number one, when you look at the God kind of hope or the biblical hope, it's first of all synonymous with three words that we're familiar with. Number one, the God kind of hope is faith. It's faith. It's when you look at biblical hope, it's synonymous with a person living by faith. If a person is living by faith, then they're operating in the God kind of hope. Hold on, because this is going to be important. They are also having confidence in God. Whenever you can deem that you have placed your confidence in God, you're operating in the God kind of hope. And that's where our confidence needs to be placed, and that's where our confidence needs to remain. See, once you decide to put your confidence in God, it really shouldn't matter what you go through after placing your confidence in him. You need to always leave your confidence in him. Am I right about that? You need to have confidence in God when you are hearing something that is contrary to what God told you he would do. Because sometimes we put our confidence in God, and then a person will speak something that's in contrast to what we're hoping for. Let me break it down. You'll put your confidence in God manifesting healing in your body, but then go back to the doctor and they say that they have received the new x-rays and nothing has changed. And they don't believe anything will ever change. See, that doctor just spoke something that was in contrast to your confidence in God. But despite what the doctor believes he or she is seeing, you need to leave your confidence in God. You don't need to move your confidence because of what the physician has spoken to you. Are y'all following me tonight? And finally, it has to do with trust. It has to do with a person putting absolute trust in God and doing what the proverb writer said in Proverbs 3, verse 4 and 5. Trust in the Lord with all of your what? Heart. Lean not to your own what? Understanding. So whenever you operate in biblical hope or the God kind of hope, you are not leaning to your own understanding. Listen to what that means. Sometimes that means you are not leaning to what you have been taught. Because sometimes we are taught things that if we lean upon what we've been taught, we're going to be leaning to our own what? Understanding. Or we're going to be leaning on the understanding of man, which is sometimes good, but you always have to consider that when you're dealing with man, his understanding is limited. See, no matter how wonderful a man or woman is, and no matter how many degrees they may have in a subject, that man or woman is still limited when compared to the knowledge of God. Come on, because sometimes we're faced with that where we have our trust in God, we say, but then a smart person says something that seems right when you consider his or her understanding in that field. It seems like they should know what they're talking about. But you always have to consider that man's understanding compared to God is limited. Man knows a little something, but God knows what? Everything. God knows all. So always leave your confidence in the one who knows everything. Because a smart person will tell you something on Wednesday, and then based upon the shift in the evidence, they'll tell you something different on Thursday. But what God tells you on Wednesday will be on Thursday, will be on Friday, will be on Saturday and Sunday. Do you get what I'm saying? And we have to understand it, because some of us that understand that tonight, we could easily look back in our past and admit that there were times we were saying we was operating in the God kind of hope, but after we got some news, it was revealed that we was in another type hope. Anybody ever believe for something and then ran into a problem or opposition, start crying, start complaining, start thinking that what you were believing for wasn't going to happen? If that's the case, you was operating in the wrong type of hope. Because whenever you operate in the God kind of hope, even when you run up against opposition, you should know opposition gonna have to move. Opposition gonna have to give way to what I'm believing. Why? Because hope, when it is the God kind of hope, is always gonna cause a person to be blessed, because it's gonna save. Do y'all see it? It's gonna cause a saving to take place. Now, the type of hope that we don't need to operate in is what a whole lot of folk operate in. And this is the reason, again, God can say something to that person, but if they hear something, if they see something that suggests what God said ain't coming to pass, they are immediately brought into disappointment, because they're operating in the type of hope that I'm finna reveal to you tonight, which will cause that type of thing to happen. That hope is wishful thinking. Wishful thinking. See, that's what a lot of saints operate in, but they claim it's the God kind of hope. But then when they run into opposition, they'll start saying things that a mature person can discern. Okay, you never did really believe God anyway. Because when you believe God for something and run into opposition, though you didn't see the opposition, God knew all about the opposition. He knew the opposition was waiting on you when he told you you could have a certain thing. He knew that there would be several people to line up in front of you to dispute you having that, yet God still deemed it yours, despite what the critics were going to say or how they were going to try to deny you from having what it is that he wanted you to have. Now, if you in the God kind of hope, you are not discouraged by what anyone says, you yet keep believing and you keep moving forward as far as you can move until you can't move any farther without supernatural assistance. But if it's only wishful thinking, the moment something is uttered in contrast to what God said, you're going to find yourself sad. You're going to find yourself not moving forward, but drawing back. And some of us have did it. We pursue things because you said God told you it was your season. But after getting denied or running into numerous of obstacles, you then start backing back saying, well, maybe it ain't my season. See, you didn't have the God kind of hope. You just was operating in wishful thinking.